welcome to the Double Shot with your favourite cousins, Alex and Tom Fitzgerald. That's right, Tom Cruise joins us in the studio this morning. I cannot believe out of all the guests that we could ever get on this podcast, Tom Cruise, you are one of them, my friend. How's it going? How's the Top Gun?
Great to be here.
Trilogy, whatever it is these days, going?
Great to be here. Can't wait for my movie to come out in a week's time.
Tom, please get off our couch. Get off our couch. No shoes on the couch, mate. I'm in love, he says.
Hey, how great it was to be in the Wild West of Melbourne with you last week. Running up dirt tracks, we saw it all.
I just felt like, who better to be my co-pilot than Maverick himself? Now, can you just please explain to the people why I called you Tom Cruise?
I was at Suncorp Stadium the other week and was just minding my own business, walking out, and this security guard said, "Mate, has anyone ever told you that you look like someone famous?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Really sorry, but got to tell you, you look like Tom Cruise."
He was sorry. He was sorry for it.
Sorry for interrupting, I guess. Yeah. Well, he just pulled me. I was just walking out of the venue, and he just took it upon himself to grab me and tell me the great news.
There you go, mate. You can go by Tom.
Favorite movie of all time is
Maverick.
Top Gun, so I was elated.
No.
I was skipping out of the stadium. Very happy with that.
Absolutely. There you go, people. Tom Cruise joins us today. Yes, you and I, Wild West, out, Thursday last week?
Yeah.
We went through all the western suburbs of Victoria. I dare say we had a blast. Yeah. I'm a little bit disappointed that I had to bring the snacks, knowing I was driving the whole day.
I don't live there. How do I bring the snacks?
Mate, you buy them at the airport. You know,
True.
You just get creative. You pack them from Brisbane. You know, your wife's a dietitian. I mean, you could bring the best snacks and arguably the most healthy. Rely on a guy to do one thing. I tell you, not a very good co-pilot.
Hans snacks that she permits. Best is a very liberal use of that word. In any event, I want to talk about pour over coffee because you alluded to the fact that you were going to indulge myself and the listeners to this new phenomenon that you have discussed called pour over coffee. I think I know what it is, but I can't say with certainty that I do. What is pour over coffee? Why are you such a big fan of it? And how did you come across it?
Okay, it's totally not a new phenomenon. So anyone who's listening to this going, I've been drinking pour over coffee for years. Where were you when I needed you, huh? Where was the little pop a little email? This is called the Double Shot after all. We have neglected the discussions of coffee, basically because it's very like sort of American how they drink their coffee. It's black coffee. I don't really enjoy drinking long blacks. So I've gone out, bought some little coffee filters, and you ground your coffee beans for the purpose of pour over coffee. So you put your little Duvalaki. For me, it's like one of those cylinders that you get when you're in your science class. You put your filter in, and then you put 2 heaves of ground coffee, and then you pour your hot water. It basically strains through the filter, and you get a black coffee that's not as like bitter and as painful to drink as like a long black, in my opinion. A coffee expert's probably listening to this going, Alex, they're the same thing. But let me tell you, it actually tastes a little bit better. And I'm not going to lie, I'm on the wedge shred, cuz I know that you poo-pooed the wedge shred back 2 years ago. You're like, it's not sustainable. Me, I want to look ill. I want to look so sickly thin that people say, what happened to her? I want to look gaunt.
And then blow out afterwards once you're married. Once you sign that unconditional contract, there's no out.
Precisely. So that's kind of where it sort of came from. So just, give it a little bit of a try. Also, I read an article that did sort of talk about how the price of coffee will go up considerably over the next sort of 6 to 12 months because of the whole supply chain issue. A lot of coffee comes internationally. They're struggling to find workers overseas to actually harvest the coffee. Even the soil that they use to grow the coffee and stuff like that. The coffee beans is it's all in very short supply. So we could be paying up to $7 for our coffees in the next sort of 12 months. I don't really want to do that. I probably would, knowing how much of an addict I am, but thought I'd give pour over coffee a little bit of a try.
Nice. I like it. And okay, so no milk is because of the wedge shred. Gotcha. Right.
No milk because of the wedge shred. Easy to drink. Now, I didn't say this in an offensive way, but there are today in this hybrid work from home, work in the office, a lot of twats. A lot of twats, cuz. Not in the offensive way. Not in the offensive way.
Okay.
This is the new phase, or acronym, I should say, for Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday office workers. Twats. Can you believe? Of all things.
Well, I can believe, because if you were going to pick 3 days, you'd pick those days, wouldn't you? You'd want Monday and Friday to be at home. In fact, no, you'd want Friday in the office. You'd want...
No. You're 100% right. But this is like a term, twats, now that you read in the paper. I'm pretty sure I thought it was an offensive term, and now we're calling people twat. Are you a twat? Are you a twat? Yeah, I'm a twat too.
So
like,
people...
My mum's English. You would not say twat. You would not call somebody a twat.
So hybrid workers are twats who choose to work from Tuesday to Thursday every week.
Well, work from the office. So they go into the city
office,
or wherever their office is, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then, yes, exactly, Monday, Friday, they work from home. That's the new phenomenon. I'm in a big city. You're not. So we've got a lot of twats getting around here. A lot of twats. Not in the offensive.
I would pick Friday to work from the office. I feel like Friday's a good day to be in the office. You can. It
is, because the vibes.
Yeah.
You kind of go more for the social aspect on a Friday, though, don't you? Yeah.
Lunch.
Yeah. That's
beers.
right. Okay, sorry, I'm totally hijacking this whole intro, but I got
a couple of, just before we get into some things, a couple of sad bits of news over the weekend. Andrew Symonds, very famous cricketer, tragically passed away at the age of 46. Very, very young. Obviously not long after we had Shane Warne passed at the age of 52. So tough year for cricket. They've also had Rod Marsh, an Australian legend.
4 days before Shane, no?
A couple of days before. So three in the space of a few months. And then yesterday, for the construction and property industry, a big loss, losing the current CEO and founder of Metricon Homes, Mario Bison.
When you sent me that article, I was in shock. Now, he was 71, but he was in very good nick.
71's not that old these days, in fairness.
No, it's not. I mean, when you compare to Andrew Symonds at 46, that's very young. Yeah. That's very young. Sorry, but 71 isn't that old these days? But I was shocked. Metricon has been in the news a lot lately because they're probably top 2 or 3 home builders in Australia, would you say?
Well, they're the biggest in Melbourne and the biggest in Queensland.
Yeah, they're huge.
So they'd have to be top 2 or 3 in Australia.
It's massive. They have about 2,500 staff and allegedly about 6,052 housing starts per annum, which is a lot. They've been talked about a lot because they carry so many of those residential home builds that, there's been a big question mark around the risk that they carry as a builder with escalating construction costs and them being locked into fixed price contracts. I believe they talked about going back to all of their homeowners and saying, hey, can you jack up these prices? And then they sort of reneged on that and decided to proceed. So
you reckon the stress of all that might have contributed?
Oh, I'm not here to comment. Absolutely not. But look, it may be a factor, As we learn more about our bodies and medical advancements, stress is an absolute killer. And every builder we talk to today, even people in the property game, say this is the hardest period of time we've ever had to go through, ever. There's no control over anything. You can just do what you can do, and you've got to try to get through it all at the end of the day. But very sad news on those 2 deaths, especially with the Metricon being very much in our orbit.
But an absolute legend of the industry. I believe he was an Italian migrant who started Metricon 50 plus years ago now. So built it to a massive, massive business, an absolute icon of the industry. It's a big loss, no doubt. Let's get to the segment that we love, the fun fact, stat fact of the week.
Stat fact.
The stat man.
Stat fact. I did not prepare a stat fact, but I did see that you prepared prepared. Fun fact. This is so in line with you. Go for it. Go for it. Take the floor.
I found this fun fact last week. I was snooping through newspaper articles and I found fell across this one. Google say that inflation, and we talked about this at the start of the podcast, inflation, it's rife at the moment. We've mentioned it in recent weeks. The fact that the cost of a cup of coffee is now at least $5, probably on the way up. Petrol, fuel, etc. We're just seeing the cost of our daily expenses going up. Inflation, really something that is worrying people. The term inflation was Googled more than Taylor Swift in the month of April. That is a fun fact for me.
What's interesting about that? I think you single-handedly put the pendulum over, because I know that you love to Google Taylor Swift a lot.
Yeah.
But I think of recent times you, with all of your articles, have just it's a 1 month in a long stretch of life that you, my friend, would be Googling inflation more than Taylor Swift, your legend, number one, never beatable. Haven't listened to any other albums getting in your car and being partial to a drive with you. So this is big news, and it just goes to show the power that you have on Google.
Yeah, well, there you go. I'm sure I haven't moved the needle too much on Google. I'm one of hundreds of millions, if not billions, of people that search on that engine every single day. But one thing, I'll tell you what, it's my birthday this week. It's Saturday this week, and it is timed perfectly with the election. Because the biggest birthday gift I think I'm getting this year is to see the end of all this nonsense that I'm sick of. I am so sick of the election dominating the news cycle. It's just gotten it's far too long. What was it, 6 weeks? Far too long.
It's 40 days. That's when they sort of started up to the election and campaign. But you know, one thing that I just want to get this off my chest, the division that elections cause between people, it's so not worth it. Yep. Like my neighbours were having an argument the other day because one's got a Greens poster board up, like a cork board up, and the other one directly opposite him has got a Liberal board up, and it's just like, and they're just like,
I can't wait to see the end of those 3% home loans, billboards, Craig Kelly's face, Anthony Albanese's interviews, Scott Morrison's. I don't care for any of them. I'm over it. But it does all come to a head this Saturday, and we're in the final week. And it has actually been finally we got a housing related policy, which probably has a bit of substance because the parties are completely divided over Scott Morrison's most recent policy, which was a really interesting one. He came out on Sunday at the launch of the Liberal campaign. Not sure why it got launched 5 or 6 weeks into the election campaign, but in any event, it did.
Strategy, cuz, all strategy.
And Scott Morrison has announced a big policy which would enable first-home buyers to take up to $50,000, whatever's the lower amount, $50,000 or 40% of the total of your superannuation. Take that out and use it as a deposit on your first home. A big policy, big different policy, and one that Labor have said, no, we're not going to do that.
Well, you talked about the Labor's announcement last week, no? They said that they would lend you up to 30 or 40% deposit so you could borrow more, but when it comes time to sell that property, the bank will be paid first, Labor or the government will be paid second, and the homeowner will be paid third, which is relatively controversial, but an option. Rising costs and housing affordability, always major election sort of goalposts, I suppose. Housing always is. Costs today more than ever because obviously we're experiencing inflation alongside no wage price increase. They've also, the Libs, brought out something for that older generation, and that they're calling it, we're yet to find the finer details, but they're calling it the downsizer selling scheme, whereby say, mum and dad they're empty nesters now, or perhaps mum by herself or dad by himself. Their kids have left and they're in a relatively big home that's, basically way more than they need. They can now sell their home and put up to 300 grand into their super. I believe penalty free. Now, you can typically do this after the age of 65, when you sort of reach your retirement years. But Liberal has said that now we'll let you do this from 55. So it actually allows more stock to come onto the market, which we are critically undersupplied, and that's got a lot to do with the house price growth, critically undersupplied stock and huge demand with low interest rates. It brings on a lot more stock to the market, but it also allows people not to be penalised between 55 and 65 to downsize and put their capital gains into their super. I like what I see thus far.
The two policies are somewhat controversial. A lot of people complaining, and probably rightly so, that the policy that ScoMo has for first-home buyers is going to create a lot of demand for housing, and therefore it's going to drive prices up without sort of dealing with the supply side. His argument is that by incentivising the 50-plus, 55-plus mum and dads, it actually does bring some supply to the market. It might be right, but look, either way, it's a massive, massive game changer for first-home buyers, because you think about it, a couple could potentially access up to $100,000, which is the Australian median house price today is $950,000. It's pretty much 10% of the deposit on a home. Now, you do have to have 5% genuine savings, much like if your mum and dad were to help you with the deposit. It doesn't solve everything, but it's a huge leg up for first-home buyers. It can't be used for by investors, for example, so it is strictly going to help the first-home buyers who are most at need. The downside is it probably does push up prices. Well, certainly it will push up prices, so you got to weigh those things up. Good luck with all that, voters.
But that's true, but isn't it interesting that a party have done something at both ends? So it's the first home buyer and then also the downsizer. I find that very interesting. I may be out of touch, but I'm yet to see anything that has been released like that before. So I guess that they are trying to pull the pendulum at both sides. Because can I just say, the most recent CoreLogic report came out. The total value of Australian residential property is just teetering on 10 million. So it's 9.98 million.
9.98. Jeez, we're close to that 10.
Sorry, trillion, mate. I'm saying million.
Yeah, 9.98 trillion. Wow.
Did I say million? Trillion, guys. What am I? Crikey doodles. One house in bloody Point Piper's 9.98 million. Any hoodles? Second biggest asset in Australia is our superannuation, but it doesn't even touch the sides of residential property. It's our super at 3.5 trillion. So we're not quite 3 times the value of our super in residential real estate. So just wanted to put that out there off the back of first home buyers possibly using 50 grand out of their super if the Libs are voted in. We'll leave that segment right there.
I was going to say, just one last thing. I was just thinking the other day when this was announced, the average Australian earns $90,000. So the big opponents to the policy have been the super funds, who are saying that you're costing people, their future retirement income.
Because they're losing money.
Well, yeah, like $90,000 when that's the average wage. So 10% goes to super, thereabouts. So that's $9,000 per person going into super. There's 10 million Australians employed today. So my numbers say that that's $90 billion that goes into superannuation every single year.
Oh, of course the retail super funds that, they make money off our money. That's fine. It gets invested. Hopefully we accumulate more as we go as well. So I'm not complaining, but of course they're going to have something to say about it because it's absolutely vacuum sucked out of their investments. And
it's not going to take that much out though. Like there's still $3.5 trillion and 90 billion going in every year. So it's actually going to make hardly any difference, in all honesty.
It's still a lot of money, though. It's still a lot of money. Maybe not to them, but if it's got $1 billion on it, I think
as ScoMo's saying, it's your money, not theirs.
Bloody oath. Bloody oath.
All right, talk me through how Australia has become one of the biggest economic forces in the world. Complete domination.
As Donald Trump would say, huge. We are huge. Yo, he doesn't actually pronounce the h, does he? Yes, huge. Geez, Bernard Salt wrote a cracking, not that he never does, but always cracking, but this was huge article in The Australian on the weekend. He really talked about how incredible our economy is and our GDP, which is essentially our output in our economy, all the money we turn over within our borders throughout all of our states. We're currently ranked the 12th largest economic force on the planet. This is according to Washington-based International Monetary Fund. They released their World Economic Outlook for 2022. Basically, our GDP is growing by about 4.2%, it's set to grow by 4.2% in the coming year. Our GDP jumped 18% from 2019 to the end of 2021. And he makes comment in this article saying, our output, because of our resource-rich country, is massive compared to our relatively very small population. So per capita, we are quite rich. Our output is humongous and our population relatively very small. We're actually not too far behind Russia. They're quite resource rich as well.
Surely probably overtaken them by now.
No, you're exactly right.
No one's buying their biggest asset at the moment.
No, you're right. And they said that the next time they release this, we could indeed have overtaken them, which could be in the next couple of months. But by comparison, and they've got a completely different economy, so barely apples with apples, but our population is their population is 5 times ours, and we're about to overtake them. We're up 1 spot from last year. And I'd just say the last point there is the only top 20 country with a higher GDP per capita than us is Switzerland. So we're small, but we are very resource rich, and our export market is strong, particularly when considered against our population base. So that was my main takeaway from that. You love Salty, and you love the folding techniques of the big Australian newspaper for your ego. So what did you take away? Anything of note that I didn't mention?
Go Australia would be the main one. I was surprised that China grew by 22% last year, and it's number 2. The US only grew by 8%, so it's catching up on the US there. And Japan, I was really surprised that Japan's still number 3, ahead of Germany and then UK rounding out the top 5. No, the only thing I would offer is a bit of constructive feedback for you, which would be that I felt this could have been done well as a little quiz. You could have quizzed me like Mitch and I were trying to make a regular thing in the podcast. You could have hidden it from the run sheet and done it as a bit of a quiz. So just a bit of constructive feedback for you going forward.
Noted with thanks. Here's a pop quiz. Which big bank bigwig left his big bank bigwig job to go and start a bank of mum and dad?
Well, that is a great segue. Brian Hartzer, the former head of the Westpac Bank, he's gone and started a bank that, for whatever reason, I haven't figured it out yet, but it's called 2BE. And and what I can't figure out is it's the number 2, then it's a capital B, and then it's a small e. So I'm not sure 2B something. But in any event, they are a bank that's been recently set up to target mum and dads who want to help their kids get into property. They're going to lend or allow mum and dads to borrow up to $500,000 to pass on to their kids to help them get into the market. Now, that isn't new. That's been being done for a while to allow parents to provide help to their kids. The issue has been that oftentimes you've needed an income to justify it, whereas this bank's going to target asset-rich mum and dads who've got a good credit history, and they're going to instead lend to them on the basis of their credit history and their asset holdings rather than income. They're not going to use income as one of their tests. That you've got to own. You've got to own $1 million. Your home's got to be worth at least $1 million, and you've got to have at least $500,000 in assets outside of your own home. So they're the tests. They're going to be higher interest rates. So like with anything, there's got to be a little bit of a downside to the upside. It is going to be an expensive interest rate, 5.95% per annum, but they will allow the mum and dads to capitalise the interest so that they don't have to pay it every single year. If you choose to pay you only get a discount of about 0.25%.
So it's interesting. I went to the website because I'm also intrigued what 2BE stands for, but it doesn't actually say. So you didn't have a man look. You really can't find it on the website.
No.
It says traditional banks don't want to lend to 55 and over. We do. And then it says 5-year fixed rate term. Love it. Option to pay interest or defer all payments to the end. Like you said, capitalise. It checks out, cuz. It checks out.
And you've got to be...
They can give you a decision in 48 hours.
Yep. And they're only going to lend to people who are between the ages of 55 and 75, which is the baby boomer segment or cohort. And their rationale for that is that 45% of all of the wealth in Australia is held in that age group by the baby boomers.
Not surprised. And I bet you most of it is held in real estate of some description. Very interesting, cuz.
Speaking of
bank of mum and dad stats, don't we?
Exactly. And speaking of rich people, there was another study that talks about what it takes to become rich, to become like those baby boomers.
Speaking of rich people, crickets.
Yeah.
Yes, I love this. Want to retire rich? Here's what you'll need.
The difference,
click.
The difference is this is actually a government report. It's come from MoneySmart, which is the government website.
Totally government website.
The government has released something asking whether you want to be rich. Here's what you got to do. Unbelievable.
You've just got to, for $29.95 per day, you have to sign up and watch these webinars every single day for $29.95. No, it says everyone's idea of rich differs, which is absolutely true. But if you want a fully self-funded retirement, then you need at least $2 million of income-producing assets on top of your home loan. Very interesting. They say 50-50 mix of growth and conservative investments would deliver annual retirement income of at least $60,000 based on current interest rates today, obviously moving target and yields, without reducing the asset base. Thing is that this does not feel like a MoneySmart government pitch, but it is.
And then they give you a bit of a yardstick by age bracket. So going up in fives from 25 all the way through to 60, what your assets would have to be today if you were on track to reach this age. And at 25 years of age, you'd have to have $233,000. Surely not many 25-year-olds have $233,000. By 35, you'd have to have just under $500,000, $455,000. And then all the way up to at 50, you'd need around $1 million according to moneysmart.gov. Now, they work it out based off superannuation going up by 3.5% compounding. And
compounding, that's key.
And you putting in $200 a week into your superannuation fund. So it is a calculation that's been done purely of generating wealth through your superannuation. As we know, Alex, it can be done much quicker. It can be done starting at a much later age, nowhere near that asset base. But it is interesting that the government has come out with a bit of a guide because they don't normally, they tend to steer clear of all this stuff.
Yes. They do. You know what? The FIRE movement people, financial independence, retire early, FIRE, they're probably looking at this going, we've already achieved this. You know, we could smash this. And that's because they live an extremely frugal life. So
interesting they've run with $2 million plus $60,000 as the $2 million in assets and $60,000 a year. I mean, that's obviously something that's subjective. Not everyone would need that or want that or whatever. But interesting that was the number they ran with.
You want to retire rich? That's what the government says you'll need. And we want you to retire rich because we don't want to fund your retirement.
We don't want to have to pay for it.
we don't have to pay for it. But guys, I think we really need to wrap up here. It's been an absolutely mammoth episode. Yep. And you know what, cuz? Next week, I think we should really just, say what we have to say about the election and then move on.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Unless we are overwhelmed with emails that people want to hear a bit more of it.
Well, one last thing to round out. Someone who's on my dodgy and sus looking radar is CSR, the building materials provider. Now, there's been a lot of flack lately about the cost of construction going up.
Yes.
And our friends at CSR, Boral, all these big companies are saying, hey, it's not us. It's simply the cost before it gets to us. We can't help
It's
it. Not our problem. It's not being caused by us. Well, CSR, how do you explain?
It wasn't me.
How do you explain an 85% surge in your annual net profit? 85% surge in net profit. Unbelievable.
And cuz profit, not revenue, profit.
And only a 10% increase in their total revenue. So 10% extra revenue for 85% more profit. That means that you have absolutely pushed your margins and are passing it on to the consumer. So I'm not going to be copying any more of that, CSR and Boral and all the building suppliers out there. About time that you fess up, I reckon.
If you're listening, you're on James's hit list. Tell me.
And it's going to make bugger all difference to the way you live your life. But anyway, I'm calling it out as I see it. All right.
That's right. Absolutely.
Who do we think will win?
Guys,
Before we throw out, who do you think will win the election?
Labor.
Yeah, me too.
You?
Yeah, me too.
Hey, but you know what? I do recall I was at a rave about 4 years ago, the night of the election.
A rave?
Yeah, I was at a rave. And I came out. No, I was at a rave. It was at a warehouse. It was fantastic.
I've never been to a rave. I don't even know what a rave is, to be honest.
That's fine. Anyway, just shut up. I was at a rave. I've never been to a rave before. What do the kids do at these raves? It's at a cool warehouse. Anyway, another time. I was at a rave. It finished at about 11 p.m, so it's relatively. And I came out, I checked my phone, and Liberal had won. And I was, what the hell?
Someone spiked my drink.
May not. Yeah, someone spiked me bitters. That's right. But so I do remember that because it was standing out like a sore thumb that Bill Shorten was going to win that last election. And I do know we've been through a lot more. People really do not like ScoMo, and for various reasons, we're all different. That's okay. I failed to see how he may win this election, but going back to that rave 4 years ago, I was avid that I would be coming out of that warehouse in a Labor federal government. Alas, I did not. But I do think Labor are going to win. Let's just see what happens. Hey, Kazzy?
Yeah, well, enjoy your rave this weekend, and we'll see you next week, guys. If you love the pod, recommend us, like us, tell your friends about it. We know you do. We love you for it. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening to another episode of The Double Shot with your favourite cousins, Alex and James Fitzgerald. If you've got a burning question or something we absolutely need to talk about on the pod, please write to us. Both of our emails are in the show notes. For little real estate tidbits and a little bit of banter, a lot of banter, you can follow us on the gram. Our handle is thedoubleshot.podcast. That, my friends, is thedoubleshot.podcast. Until next time, think of us when you sit back and sip your next double shot.
What music plays at a rave? What do you got, a bit of Armin van Buuren?
Armin van Buuren. That's.
I don't even know who that is.
That's Sans, mate. That's. You're embarrassing.